Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Voices Unheard Torture, Trauma, and Justice in Marginalized South Asian Communities. I'm Heman, your host from South Asia Research Institute for Minorities. This is an organization which is working for communities that are discriminated basis on the work and circumstances and the culture. Basically, we are an organization focused on minority communities, and I'm honestly so pumped to be here with you all. Whether you are in a Dhaka, Delhi, or the halfway across the world, you are a part of something special today. Before diving deep into the topic, let's take a second to ground ourselves in why we are here today. In South Asia alone, where over 2 billion people live, millions out of them are Dalits, Rohingya, Adivasis, or religious minorities who are caught into the cycles of torture and trauma. In Myanmar alone, over 7 lakh Rohingyas have been driven from their homes since 2017 in what the UN calls ethnic cleansing. Caste violence, 1 in 4 Dalits in India face assault or humiliation as per recent survey. These are not just statistics, they are the real lives, real pain, and real fight for the justice. Today, we are not just talking about the problem, we are lifting up voices that get ignored, digged into what's broken, and dreaming of ways to make things right. Let me introduce our esteemed speaker, each of whom brings a unique and powerful perspective to this timely conversation. First up, we have Arvind Narrain, a legal scholar and author who's like a truth teller with a law degree. He's a Chevening scholar, studied at the University of Warwick, and his work cuts through the maze of systematic injustice like nobody's business. I've been so glad you are here with us for this session. Then there is a Reeta Pariyar. She's a writer, activist, and a social entrepreneur who's just unstoppable. She's a Dalit woman. Rita's lived the struggles and turned into a fuel for the change, fighting caste and gender oppression with stories and solutions that hit you right in the heart. Rita, I believe she is a hero, and once she will join, we will welcome her again. We are also joined by Zafar. He is a president of the Myanmar Ethnic Rohingya Human Rights Organization, Malaysia. Zafar is carrying, the weight of the Rohingya fight, which faces genocide, displacement, and trauma. And his advocacy is a lifeline for so many. Zafar, thank you for bringing your voice to today's session. And last but not least, Manavi Atri. She is a human rights lawyer and author with the People's Union for Civil Liberties. Manvi is out there battling state violence and fighting for the most vulnerable, reminding us that justice is something that you can do. Manvi, you are powerhouse, and great to have you for this session. I believe what a panelist, right? But let's get this conversation rolling. Let's dive in. Torture and trauma are not just headlines. They are tearing through the South Asian most vulnerable communities, from be it the police stations or the refugee camps. Arvind, you have seen how law can either protect or fail people. Can you break it down for us? Why are South Asians' legal system letting down communities like Dalits, Adivasis, or Rohingya? Maybe share a case that has been stuck with you or something that keeps you up at night. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Heman, for this invitation, and it's a pleasure to be here with everybody else. And I want to begin by breaking, as you rightly indicated, break down the term called torture. Why do we think torture is a problem at all? Why does the world think? Why does the United Nations think torture is a problem? Why do a convention to prohibit the practice of torture? Why is torture considered in international law what you call a jus cogens norm? That is a non-derogable obligation of international law. So the point you have to address again is torture. Though you use the word torture and trauma together, I think torture leads to trauma. So torture is the action which can lead to trauma, and among other things. And you understand torture from this particular point of view. I think we all know at some point in time you might have had a toothache at the most banal, basic level. What happens when you have a toothache is you can't focus on anything other than your tooth. So torture is that ability, or what it does is it reduces your world. You're a human being with a range of complexities and a range of abilities to relate to many, many, many levels. But when you're subject to torture, all you can think of is that the pain that you're being subjected to. So it's a way of, in a sense, it's a fundamental attack on what it is to be human, because you're reducing human beings to nothing more than the bodies that they live in, and nothing more than the pain that they feel at that particular moment in time. So if you're nothing more than a body in pain, then torture is a fundamental violation of what it means to be human, and therefore it's something which we have to take very, very seriously. And here you get me to the second part of your very important question, which is how have South Asian legal systems dealt with this entire question of torture. And we did a little bit of work looking at this. And again, the point which people keep saying, I'm sure it's true in other South Asian countries as well, but the point people keep making is India is the country par excellence of commissions of inquiry. Any difficult situation you have, set up a commission of inquiry. Commission of inquiry by a retired judge, maybe whoever it may be, it'll take years to come up with this report. When the report finally comes, it's irrelevant. To give you a great example is the inquiry, the judicial inquiry into the entire Babri Masjid demolition, which went on for I think 17 long years. The Lebanon Commission. It's a very good report, but 17 long years, you come up with a report. Then what value does the report have? You've killed the issue in effect, and you've not responded in a timely manner to the issue. Of course, in the question of timeliness, you can the example of the exact counter, which again is very useful from the torture perspective, is the Burma Committee report, which is on the entire question of the Delhi gang rape, which came out in I think a 1 month flat. That's an extraordinary example of a report which came out early. But the point being, very simply, that India is the point I wanted to get to is India is the country, if you want to put it, of commissions of inquiry and reports. And if you ask me, I think at how many reports do we have on the question of torture? I think the only report which I can think of is a report which is in colonial times, where the colonial government constituted an inquiry called the Madras Torture Commission to look into the question of why the police are engaging in the practice of torture. And it's a matter of shame that after that, we've had no commission of inquiry on the larger question of torture, saying that we want to understand why the police is torturing, we want to understand why torture is an established practice, we want to do something to stop torture. So that's the shocking detail, of course, is that the Indian state has not taken torture seriously. How do I say this? Two levels. One is at the international level. If you look at it, we have not ratified. We have ratified the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Economic, Social, Cultural Rights, Convention on Rights of the Child, CEDAW, but Convention against Torture, the Indian state has been very resistant to ratifying. Which tells you again that you don't mind being called out as a state in which there's impunity for torture at the international level. You go to every Human Rights Council, you go to every Universal Periodic Review, invariably, the point which is put before the Indian government is why have you not ratified the Convention against Torture? India will say a range of things, but will never take up the obligation, saying that yes, we will ratify the Convention against Torture. That's at one level. Then, of course, speaking at the international level alone is not enough. You have to speak at the domestic level and say what has happened at the domestic level vis-a-vis torture. I made the point that with respect to commissions of inquiry, there's not a single commission of inquiry on the broader question of torture. What about the question of legislative reform? On the legislative range of bills which have been proposed to prohibit the practice of torture, but as of now, no bill has yet become law in the Indian context. That's one level. The other very important point, I think, especially in terms of the current government, which claims again to represent what they colonize. They want to decolonize, right? Their argument again and again, they want to decolonize India from the ravages or the influence of the British. The Home Minister recently made a speech where his argument is we should be ashamed of speaking in English. We need to go back to our regional languages. We all have pride in our regional languages, but my point is this: the question of your question of pride must come from eschewing of the practices of colonial authorities. And one of the practices of the colonial authorities, which the Madras Torture Commission reveals, is the question of torture. So you must, as a state, take steps to prohibit the practice of torture. You haven't done it at the international level. At the national level, okay, fine. We have the Indian Penal Code in 1860, the British legacy. Maybe you're stuck with the British law. Maybe reform didn't quite work out. But the opportunity you had was recently when the government, again, the argument of the government is we're going to decolonize. We're sick and tired of the Indian Penal Code. We're sick and tired of the colonial legacy. We're a new country. We're a new civilization. We want to give birth to new ideas. Therefore, we will get rid of the colonial legacy to something called the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita and to a BNNS. Again, I'm from the south, so the Hindi Sanskrit language, which I can't fully put out, but BNS, Bharatiya Nagrika Suraksha Samiti. So different kinds of new languages, this broadly Sanskrit language, to talk about the new codes. The question you have to ask is, fine, you want to decolonize. Have you got rid of the awful colonial practice of torture, which is still prevalent in the Indian context? And the answer to that is no. Is no. The opportunity for decolonization was 2023 when the BNS and the BNNS came into place, and the Indian government refused to go down the route of actually decolonizing by prohibiting the practice of torture. That's all. Then one last point I'll make. I think since you raised the question of the basis of torture, is a very important point. Is okay. Torture is the infliction of pain to achieve a certain objective. Is the infliction of pain for the sake of on the basis of certain biases or prejudices. And in the Indian context, as you rightly indicated, the question of you can one argument may be, why do police torture? Police torture because that's a way to solve a case. I mean, if I don't have the means to solve a crime, maybe I beat the fellow up. The fellow will tell me what the information I need. I'll make my arrests and I'll solve the crime. But I think that's only one dimension of why torture happens. The other dimension of why torture happens is what you rightly indicated, because of the fact that there's a range of biases and prejudices which are there in Indian society to become part of the ruling, become part of the framework of the state. As you rightly indicated, the bias or prejudice on the ground of caste, on the ground of religion, are very much a part of the way the administration in the Indian context thinks. So the question, of course, is the question of torture is really imbued with the intent to humiliate persons on grounds of caste, on grounds of religion. There are examples, again, brutal examples of humiliation, where you had Dalit individuals in the police station who have been urinated upon by the police officer. Again, you ask the question, why would the police officer do that? The logic of it is clear. The logic is the logic of humiliation, and the logic of humiliation draws from the framework of the notion of the caste system. So again, if you ask why torture is prevalent in the Indian context, I think you have to address the question that because caste is the law in the Indian context, and that's the basis on which torture gets perpetrated. Of course, the argument, one last point I'll make it before I pass it on, is torture is on the basis of caste. Torture is on the basis of religion, especially when the setup believes in a certain hierarchy of religions. When you say one religion is above another religion, it's on the basis of religion. It's on the basis of sexuality, where if you believe that the only people who are normative, who deserve protection, are those who come within the heterosexual same framework. So people who are transgender, people who are gay, people who are lesbian will also be subject to torture because they fall outside the framework or the recognition of what it is to be human. So this is, and finally, of course, I mean, the important point which I began with is the question of torture on grounds of sex. That's another very important framework we should never lose sight of, because the Verma Committee report again indicated that the question of almost indescribable, unthinkable violence, which is inflicted in 2013, comes from the bias or prejudice, which sees the fact that the patriarchal bias which sees the men as being superior, as far as and women being forced to conform to certain social rules. If they go outside those rules, if they challenge the bases, the cages within which patriarchy put them, then they can be subject to unthinkable, indescribable violence, which today we really call by the name of torture. I'll end by one last line to make the point that I'm so glad that you called this meeting, because the issue of torture is not an issue which has many parents. What I mean to say is, if we take the case of, say, identity-based framework, say LGBT rights, say Dalit rights, say rights of minorities, then the people will stand up and say that we protect this grouping because we are a part of this grouping. Once you say torture, the framework is broader. You could be Dalit, you may be a religious minority, you may be a sexuality minority, you may be women, you could be any grouping who is subject to the issue of torture. So it's a more difficult issue in the sense that it tries to bring together a range of groupings. At the same time, that's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is the issue which has no, shall we say, no one advocate for the issue. So the human rights framework or the human rights groupings are very important because they're making the simple point. Uh, you go to a police station and you're trying to get somebody released. You're trying to say torture of this person is wrong. You can never say torture of one person is wrong. You can only say torture is wrong. And that's your framework. You're saying torture is wrong. Whoever the subject of torture may be. And that's a very important framework to put forward because what you're basing it in on is the idea of the common humanity of all of us. Torture is wrong means that torture any human being is wrong. You're not particularly concerned with the background of the person, but you're making the case that torture is wrong. And that's the going back to the promise of the Universal Declaration, where you're making the point that torture any human being is wrong, and we should move towards a world where no human being is subject to torture for any reason whatsoever. So thank you again for inviting us, and I think thank you for organizing this particular program.
Thank you very much, Arvind. And I really like the way you carried the conversation, a foundational basis of the torture, and most importantly, that one cannot talk about the decolonization while clinging to the colonial tools like custodial torture. And thank you for that. Manvi, over to you. Since you are fighting for the justice through the law too, how can you turn global outrage into actual accountability? Something like Rohingya crisis, what's working, what's not? Over to you.
Thank you so much for the very kind introduction and inviting us to speak on this. In what I want to share with all of you, I actually want to start off with something that Arvind left off with in terms of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I think it's very important in talking about torture and violence. One has to also look at the most basic human need of the aspiration of freedom from fear. To live in a society and in a state where you can be free from fear, I think that is an aspirational goal that we find in the preamble of the UDHR that we must yearn to work towards. Because resisting on the principle of torture and recognizing torture itself globally and all groups along, like Arvind said, across groups and across identities. But it is also there is also a positive aspiration there for freedom from fear and the fundamental right to life, right? And for the protection of those two and for the imagination of those two, in the context of India, I will speak more about the aspect of hatred, dehumanization, and how that has seeped into society and stayed both in a way that leads to tortures of different kinds, right? So if one has to understand this kind of appetite of hate that we have in the Indian society that we're seeing today and the rising Islamophobia, it's not new in the sense that this kind of appetite of hatred comes from the caste-based society. It comes from, this apathy comes from the notion of caste, of not being moved to protect the other, to even share your food with the other. And so this othering comes very naturally and organically to people living in the Indian society. Now there's a new layer added on that, on the question of the appetite of hatred is now being directed towards the Muslims in one sense in India right now. And how does this kind of hatred lead to violence, lead to state violence, lead to torture? You can look at how the people that are in these institutions, whether it is your police, whether it is the judiciary, they are effectively people who are a part of the same society, right? And we have seen in the last few years openly even statements being made by judges with reference to saying go back to Pakistan, or making statements about the recent attack that happened in India in a particular context. So in you see the same kind of stereotypes and biases. The people who are in the institutions, the state, the judges, they are not protected from these stereotypes and biases. They in fact have the power to perpetuate them or the power to mitigate them in a way that they realize the constitutional potential. But what we also see in reality is that they do in many ways reiterate and reinforce those same stereotypes and biases and further the hate that they have internalized for generations. I want to speak about one particular example of a recent case of mob lynching in Karnataka. This is the first case of mob lynching that's happened in Karnataka. There's three parts of it that is shocking to me. Right? I know when we think of torture, we only often think of state, and why we think of violence, we only often think of the state. But there is a parallel machinery in some parts of India, which is empowered by the current political party in power, and is empowered and emboldened to bring to action the majoritarian politics at play in India. And using Hindutva, they have internalized the hatred so much. In this particular case, there was a 39-year-old man, Muhammad Ashraf, who was lynched to death. He was a rag picker who was walking on a railway track and he'd seen a cricket ground. We don't know why he went towards the cricket ground, but he did. His mother says maybe he liked cricket. His brother says that, because he was a rag picker, he was collecting the plastic bottles there. We don't know why he did it. But what we do know is that within the next 15-20 minutes, you see the area in Mangalore is called Kudupu. There was a cricket game that was organized there. You see a mob of people from the cricket game come towards Ashra, and there's an altercation that happens. And over the period of the next 15-20 minutes, we don't know exactly, but he was lynched to death. What's shocking of this is three things. It's not the fact that the lynching happens, right? It's firstly, after they have lynched him, they have gone back to play cricket. They have gone back to play as if there are no consequences of the life they've taken. There are no consequences for them that they're worried about. They continue to play in the proximity of the deceased's body there. One. Two, the police comes there. The police comes there within an hour or two, and they come and find the body. And if anybody sees the body, any reasonable person, the body has wounds which are very evidently cannot be self-inflicted. They are not of a fall. And despite that, they register unnatural death report, right? And they don't register an FIR. And they don't arrest anybody on the spot when the people who were involved in the lynching, who were possibly witnesses to the lynching continue to play cricket, none of them from the spot get arrested. And the third part of it that is shocking is that a decade ago, when the first lynching happened in terms of on the basis of religion, which is Akhlaq's lynching, and followed by that the Behlu Khan lynching. In both of these lynching, there was an outrage, there was a demand for justice, there was support to the family. Right? In this case, there has been hardly any outrage. There has hardly been any response, even from activists, because the kind of desensitization that has happened and normalization that's happened in the minds of the people, where it's just another lynching. And so the way in which you see how the tendencies of bias, stereotype, and that eventually lead to violence based on hatred, which is embodied in the society, the same is reflected by the state. And based on that, it feeds into one another to lead to a culture of impunity and fear. And that is the reality that we are operating in. And in that culture of impunity and fear, it is that what is the work ahead of us, right? It is really the work of doing fact-finding reports, of supporting the family, extending solidarities which are not conditional, to the fact that, okay, the lynching happened yesterday. It's not conditional to that. It's a long struggle, because if you find the lawyers who worked with the family of Behlu Khan and Akhlaq, they continue to still struggle together despite the acquittals that happened in those cases. So the struggle for justice when it comes to torture and state violence and hate crimes, the path is very long, and it can only be imagined if there is a collective solidarity in that fight for justice. Otherwise, it's a very lonely fight. But I'm very happy that we're having this conversation here today. I hope this was helpful. I look forward to hearing the answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manavi. It is always, talking and hearing you. And you know what, I believe that those who are tasked with upholding the justice are themselves shaped by a deep-rooted prejudice. It is not the system that fails, but it also harms. You talked about the Karnataka mob lynching, which I believe is not an exception. It is a reminder. Now let's turn to crisis that's just heartbreaking, the Rohingya genocide. Since 2017, over 7 lakh Rohingya have fled Myanmar, villages, burned villages, families torn apart, and even unimaginable trauma. Zafar, you are, with your organization, you have been doing this kind of work for these people. What's the life like for the Rohingya today, whether in Bangladesh camps or the elsewhere? Over to you.
First, I would like to thank you for inviting me, give the opportunity to speak about the background for Rohingya situation crisis, the South Asia country. So this is very important to everyone who are minority group today. South Asia are facing many we're about to decrease this for refugee, asylum seeker, genocider, and conflict, war. But this is very important for everyone. So myself, I also beat in the fake news and xenophobia, hate speech, everyone know. So until people also attack to me, until people also believe me, I demand the Malaysian citizenship. So I already passed, I also press release and including a lost report police station. So this is my part. I do not talking about the more my part issue. Everyone know is my situation and my family in my community here, Malaysia. So we Rohingya are not today, tomorrow. We are genocide victim. So past I say before independent Myanmar 1942, also our Rohingya are massacre victim. Also 115,000 Rohingya are killing. Also 300,000 of our house to burn at the Arkan state. So we beat him since 1942 until 1962 at the massacre. On 1962 until 2012, we beat him and facing slow burning genocide. On 2012, open genocide until now. So people, everybody had know. Also, you had mentioned Rohingya is one ethnic, the more persecuted ethnic in the world. But today, I say we are neighboring country at the South Asia. So when our country, our life danger and facing threat and burn a house, burn their life, and the people are killed their life, and the children and women rape. So sexually violation, many ongoing still until today. So Rohingya live first to flee the country to seek protection. We are come any neighboring country now are demanding their citizenship equally rights. We are also living in the temporary as a refugee, including in Bangladesh, India, uh, also Pakistan, also including Saudi Arab, also Thailand, Nepal, also Sri Lanka, also Indonesia, Malaysia, around the world, Rohingya also there. So some Rohingya also resettle, they have become one day maybe citizen. So when UNICEF resettle there, there be one have the future come the citizen above their legal status. We also South Asia country we live in without any legal document. We are facing the illegal immigrant. Whatever we have UNICEF card holder, UNICEF mandate, but state is still denying refugee at the country, but including I say Malaysia. So I live in Malaysia. So Malaysia also now not have the 1951 and 1967 the refugee convention and protocol, not the senator country, not have the senator country. But when before Malaysia also many humanitarian concern at the Rohingya situation about the solidarity come together Rohingya go to the send to the about the Fort Potila to Myanmar. So we also thank you for Malaysian government and Malaysian people, including other also our neighboring country who are help our Rohingya and other also people from Myanmar to seek and protection. So I am understanding this become worse and then when the COVID-19 uh, 2020, when the one boat come here, Malaysia, soil in the Langkawi, 206 Rohingya, this also very lockdown, clear lockdown. So people cannot go anyway. So this time 206 Rohingya when arrived in the Langkawi soil, option in the Langkawi in the area in the Malaysian soil. So maybe to push the 206 Rohingya, when many media also ask request to me comment, I say I know the very critical situation. I have been no any statement. So last when more media request to me, I want to release one official press release. I only talking about the first this statement I talking about and Rohingya genocide, international community and United Nations, ASEAN and OIC, European country involved collectively and Rohingya genocide. Second, I say who are human trafficker involved in the networking is still ongoing. They have been arrested and prosecuted. they're saying only toward this statement. I'm not touched in the issue they when about the maybe push the 206 Rohingya. So at the same time, others international NGO also speak up this issue. Human Rights Watch also European Rohingya Council in for government. So when I 23 pre-release, same time, same day, the come was about the social media to start attack to me. So when I see my Facebook page, about my Facebook profile, this time 20,000 people comment. People are just to me. People are looking to me. So this is come very affected uh, the fake news at the heat space. So I hope we are going to our society. When we our society in the our South Asia society, we also want South Asian people, ASEAN people, also world people, Rohingya. But nobody denying we are people, we are human. So when people are attacked, especially Rohingya, say every way come to virus. When the COVID-19 virus come every way, so Rohingya issue also come every way. Virus come to the heat space and xenophobia, threatening Rohingya, physical violation. So this is our most Rohingya they traumatized after they receive at the death threat and heat space. So this is one very affected the society and the state. So I know is the whatever is sharing in the link in the UN Special Rapporteur writing to the Malaysian government the for UN Special Rapporteur concern my case. So this is I do not have there still no justice. I do not need justice, but still I living in the facing come to the threat and harassment. So I don't know how long people ongoing this condition. So I hope every we are nation, South Asian nation state must collectively and including civil South Asian people come together and in the heat space and xenophobia and Islamophobia and harassment must be come together and we our state and peace and peacefully we live. We must be together work and collectively we love each other. You are believe whatever your religion you believe, this is your side. I believe my religion, I believe. You do not believe my religion, I do not blame your religion. So you believe your religion, I believe my religion. So we can together sit and table discuss how to we can solve this problem. So we talking about also sometimes media also meant they are geopolitics also going to the politician take must comment. So when speak out the politician, they are also when they come election, a small and general election, they also use campaign also Rohingya issues. So this is our understanding. When they are use the election campaign for put Rohingya cases to speak up. So this is also one affected and the country and the people of country. So they are also biased. People are harmed and attacked. So we are genocide survivor. We are genocide victim in long time here, still now. Also, you all know since 2024, again, Rohingya are victim genocide. Arkan army are killing all our Mondo Busidon township, also house to burn, also life to kill. So still ongoing Rohingya situation, nobody to highlight. Nobody, ASEAN country including, not one especially, specifically no statement, but they are ASEAN continue to highlight issue Myanmar and democracy. So human rights violation in the Myanmar. So in the same time, Arkan state ongoing genocide. Now nobody highlight, nobody to quote any action. But at the same time, Indian also last month also pushed back soil and the 14 Rohingya. But their life, I do not to granted in the Myanmar military, whatever they are no safe life. I know what the back home information we have received. They are no safe place. So India is one democracy country. We also our neighboring countries, our neighbor countries have the right to protect. As the genocide survivor, any war facing country or nation, they have the right to protect. So every we are human, born, whatever we here, have the right to protect, right to save their life. So this is very heartbreaking. What I watched into the news, I also sent to the letter for Home Minister, the Indian Home Minister. So I also write into the United Nations, the Human Rights Council, including OCHR, I write in. So they also come to the addressing UN Human Rights, the Council OCHR also addressing this issue. So we do not silent whatever our in front happening, our eyes in front happening, we do not silent. We do not close our eyes. As a human being, you must to get us, to save us, support us. What? Your humanity. What? Your human rights. Democracy country is the more powerful have the human rights. But you are denying the human rights. You're also part of the Universal Declaration for Human Rights. You teacher, the member of the you teacher. But this is whatever I'm saying is very danger. So not only this time also heat space, but before also heat space to 2019, 2017 also heat space and xenophobia come to them from started in Myanmar. Also military family, military member. They also viral also I reading about the article to Reuters. I know those this is not first time. So I hope our all panelists and also we have the one lawyer in our panelists. Please advise me what we can do, how we can move. And then our brother Anin brother, also I know you are very gratefully you also explained it, what happening in the India about the situation about the religion fear about the most. So I know you also welcome. You speak on behalf of those who are minority group are facing South Asia. So only not South Asia, around the world, we have the right to quote Universal Declaration for Human Rights. The Article 1, 2, 3 must be, we are reading about the speak up to save the minority group, including the indigenous group, who are facing their life and threatening and other also no have the freedom movement, no right to the politics, no have the everything to deny. So now 1982 law, Myanmar military denying our all rights. How we can go back in Myanmar? Whatever we go, we do not have the house. We can live in still in the refugee camp. You know, to 2012, open genocide start. This time, 100,000 over Rohingya still they are living in the IDP camp. Still they are cannot go back their village, their home. How we can go back? Still, Myanmar ongoing genocide, war, civil war, including their people also killing, their religion also killing. So I hope this is lesson in everyone. Lesson for my voice. I need your voice. Our voices, your voiceless. So I need your help to speak up on behalf minority group, on behalf Rohingya. We Rohingya are enough. We are suffering many. So I need, please, other also speaker, give the time. So whatever we have, continue another part we speak up. So I live in still and receive the threatening harassment as a human rights defender. So I don't know how long people continue attack to me. So I have no work normal before. So I go to the meeting at the safety security to see place. I go the meeting at the my escort, my bodyguard and escort. I go to the meeting at the high level meeting. So normal meeting when they are invited, I cannot go, but my safety reason public place. So still when people target to me, I cannot. I am no that satisfy my life. So I do not go. Whatever I go in, continue I advocate, continue I speak up, continue I fight and hit space and xenophobia and fake news. I still ongoing fight. I ask to the justice. Whatever people saying. So I believe whatever I believe, I go continue to advocate. But no people deny me whatever I believe. People are kill me. People are cannot kill my belief. So as a human rights defender, many nation to affect that are killing long information and detention, I speak up all human rights defender timely protection and justice. Not only me, all human rights defenders around the globe must have the right to protect and justice and provide their protection, state and non-state. So, however, for your information, I say in one quote, brother, to say, this is geopolitics. Whatever your current government of opposition, their mindsets to change at the public to put about to the hate, and they take at their boat to support their. This is happening now. So I hope this is very dangerous affected the minority group, including mostly Rohingya. So I am every issue I continue to highlight. Whenever media asks to me comment, I continue to fight and ask justice. But this issue now affected only my community, also all refugee and Asylum seeker, including the migrant. Around they come to the, everyone affected. This fake news and hate speech. So everyone affected, also country affected, economy affected, society affected. So that's why I ask whether we have any forum, any webinar, any conference, we must speak up. Whatever we have today are facing. So this is, I know the impact in the heat space to your loss of dignity, traumatized after receive thousands of death. That threat to physical and violence and threat to kidnap my children, including and to rape my wife. So desperation because is the safety of family. Family had problem, had each other dizziness, body pain, cannot go to treatment. But this is very dangerous. The heat space, this is not acceptable. Nobody can accept this. So whatever I feel today, my place you come, you know what people are feeling, whatever people are their position in the heat space, who is the victimized the heat space. So energy they cannot sleep in. I cannot sleep in 3 years. The other also our panelists to speak better for us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zafar. And we totally understand what Rohingya people going through, and yet they continue to survive through the strength of solidarity, voices like yours. And thank you for speaking up on behalf of all of them. Now we have the Rita. She has worked with the Dalit communities who face not just physical torture, but the consistent grind of caste oppression. I mean, cases like Hathras in 2020, where a Dalit woman's death exposed such brutal violence, show how deep this goes. Can you share a story that brings this to life, and what does this trauma feel like, and what's blocking justice? So you can go ahead and speak. That's fine.
Yeah,
You can.
okay, that's fine. Yeah, okay. Good afternoon and namaskar to everybody. Yeah, okay, thank you. It's a really a powerful topic that you have Sarim had chosen this time. The voice unheard, torture, trauma, and justice in South Asian community. Um, so many friends has already said many things about the South Asia. Mostly, I heard about my previous friend MERHROM. I really can feel his pain, the way he speak about his justice, and then he's not getting it. Uncovering the hidden stories, cry for justice. It's a really ongoing issues in South Asia, mostly because we have many issues like kind of caste-based issues, gender-based issues, ethnic oppression, forced political confession, the police brutality, military violence. This kind of issues always exist in the South Asian marginalized community. They always have to face this by state. However, in the name of justice, even state is not really giving the justice to the minorities community. So basically, how we have to understand is that what is the trauma and torture? Like even conviction has defined the torture is like pain of suffering, physical, mental, and then punishment, intimidation, discrimination. These kind of things. If any society of um, old. So basically, we more focus in South Asia. So they all have to face this torture by the nation, by the communities, and the marginalized community where the people are like uh, facing many issues in South Asia mostly. We have like these 8 countries in South Asia: Nepal, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Bhutan, Maldives. These are the countries that were how marginalized voice has been unheard, how they've been brutally criminalized in the name of lynching, in the name of justice, and they've been always uh, keeping aside their voice. And a lot of the time, the voice is coming out as a like a tsunami often. So in Nepal, like there is a lot of uh, political issues, the marriage industry. There's a time a lot of people has been tortured and traumatized. Basically, this political leader has used women, Dalit, and indigenous people. They were showing the false hope that okay, if democracy comes in. Federalism comes in Nepal, you will get the same dignified life. You can live decent life like everybody else. Like we have this caste-based discrimination in Nepal is really, really big issues because every day people are suffering in the name of caste issues. Like even the public schools and then college, and you go to the public temple, and in many other places. So they every day they we hear the news by that, and then a lot of girls being raped. So basically, these kind of things always been in our South Asia, mostly everywhere in India and Nepal and other part of South Asia even. So basically, I like to point out certain example with how marginalized people in South Asia has been suffering and how their voice has been unheard and how they not being able to come all together and to get the justice. For me, like I think in Nepal, of course, I already told you, just mentioned about this, like Maoist insurgency, when there is a lot of girls being raped, even from the Maoist side and from the government side. So both sides, the mostly the victimized was the young girls who's been raped, and many people has been killed. This Dalit young people and all the indigenous people, in the name of to get justice and freedom, they have sacrificed their life. But then there's a certain survivors as they're like certain women who's been like raped by government sector like police armies, and then even the Maoist the armies, whatever you call the Maoist these people in a movement. So there was a many example, like I don't know if you guys heard about that. It's like Moina Sonowar is 15 years old girl tortured, killed by the Nepal army, in the Maoist insurgency. So that time, like, no one has this case never got justice. So the case is still pending. So obviously, sometimes this the nation even itself. So who control the power? In the powers, there's a certain caste hold these powers. So that's why all the bureaucracy and all the police administration and all this judiciary system hijacked by those couple of caste by. So obviously, the Maina Sinwar was a Dalit young girl. So obviously, she hasn't got the she could not reach to the justice. So it's still like we're fighting for her. And there are many other issues like her. But I'm giving each country of example of each country one major issue. I mean, India. I think my coming friends Arvind will talk about that more. But I will just like how the India has issues like the Hinduism in the religions and Muslim. So they have always issue of that, and caste issues in India and Nepal is the same as well. So obviously there is like this Jairaj and Benix, his father and son tortured to the death in police custody in the Tamil Nadu over the COVID curfew vacation that you probably had heard that. So that is sparked outrage against the custodial torture. The house. So the poor and powerless and vulnerable people hasn't got the access to the justice. So those are the issues in India. There's a caste-based violence every day, and murder, rape, and you always see this abuse of the Kashmir and against individual population. And if you go to like Pakistan, I don't have to say, but very sorry, they all talk about the organized history, the Pakistan. So basically, even there is of this gender-based um, uh, discrimination plus the woman, they've been tortured. Even I just saw the last time the one young girl, I forgot her name, but she made a TikTok and she has been brutally killed. And this is how it is in the society of South Asia. So obviously other issues there are. Even the friends of ours maybe will mention more. In Bangladesh, obviously they have like all religious issue, Tamil and singles. They have all those issues of that, and they recently has a political issues. You know how this been going on, this political uh, uh, revelation, whatever you call there, and then how this uh, uh, marginalized of Hindu people has been suffering there as well. So every country, South Asia has whoever minoralized, they been marginalized people. There has been always has to go through this all trauma and torture by the state, by the people who got the access, who got the power, and even the Sri Lanka, they have always uh, after the post-civil war, they always have this Tamil civilians torture, then the rape, burning, beating always there. And another political issue just happened a couple of years back, how this one family runs whole country, and then they just misuse the power, and the country people has to suffer all. But then again, now they try to rise, and I hope these things will settle down in Sri Lanka. So obviously they have like this all Tamil and Sinhalese, and always in the war, whenever the war happens, who suffers is the woman, marginalized people, and children are the one who victimized by the any wars and any revolution in the name of politics, in the name of the justice. So basically, even though there is the same things, and if you go to like Afghanistan, I mean, you know how the things are in under the torture under the Taliban rules. The public lashing, women and journalists, minorities like a Hazara faced abuse and trauma there, so these all are the things. So everybody has to suffer in South Asia. Justice system fully controlled by the extreme ideology in Afghanistan. And if you come to the Bhutan, they have the way we always make narration that okay, Bhutan is the peace country, but they have still, the Bhutan, lot of ethnic Nepali population taught and living there and explained, and over the I don't know how you say, 1 million peoples in the refugees are there stateless because they don't have any passport, any identity. They cannot travel, they cannot get good job there. So they have another issues of Nepali who lives in Bhutan. And even the Maldives, I mean, opposition leaders torture the current political party who fight for a freedom violation. So the mental and physical trauma, that state of suppression for those political prisoners, and then they abuse them in the Maldives. So this all the South Asian country mostly, we have the common problem is that you see the police brutality, state bias on certain the certain people, military violence, gender-based torture, caste-based and ethnic operation, forced confession. The lynching. Another friend, I think was named Maroi, is speaking about that, and political confession. All these kind of issues is common issues of our South Asian country. So what we have to do this cost of silence, because we have to speak for each other. So if we became we stay silent, okay, that's their problem, and we have another problem, so we're never going to be united together to fight for our problems. So that's why what we think is that we have the common problem, and everybody knows that we have this kind of problem in South Asia. And then other friends, he was talking about the Rohingya, how he has to leave his country and then still want to come back to his home. So to leave the dignity we born, we really like the place where we born. So what we can do, the justice look like, how we can the justice look like, how can we do the all together is the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And we have this Nepal and Sri Lanka, and then we have a BIMSTEC and legal reforms. India oppressed the anti-torture law and international advocacy, even in amnesty. These are things, survival centers, healing initiation. These kind of things established, in the in the name of bring the peace and justice in South Asia, but they seems to be only there and not working much enough. So what we can do, the call to action, how we can address these issues. We always have to listen to survivors, because that friends Mentrum, we consider that our issue, then we can feel his pain, so we can speak for him too. So speak out against all kind of South Asian injustice, support community and lead healing, pressure for justice system reform. So this way we can probably reduce our problems, and it's a long way to go. And then struggle for justice. It has to be. We have to come all together to fight for this. And as other my friend was mentioning that it's a very lonely fight if we go one by one. So if we come all together, uh, we can get the justice. So my closing thought is like torture breaks body, but silence breaks societies and nation. Thank you so much for having me. And if any question is ahead, and I'm very happy to address them. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rita, for being the part of the session and highlighting those points. Since we are at the end of this webinar, but this is just a beginning. What we see across South Asia today is not just a series of isolated incidents, but a deeply rooted pattern of structural violence. I mean, be it from the caste and gender based oppression or to police brutality to ethnic discrimination, marginalized communities face ruthless trauma in South Asia. Mr. Arvind, Ms. Rita, Mr. Zafar, and Manvi, I believe that you guys have blown us away with your passion and ideas. Also, you have shown us the pain of the torture, the weight of the trauma, and the power of the fighting for justice. To everyone watching, you are part of this now. Thank you very much for joining us for this webinar. Stay connected, and we will see you soon in another webinar. Take care. Thank you very much again for the being of part this insightful and knowledgeful session.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
for
much.
calling us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you very much.